Thank you so much, everyone, for coming back to our events. We have a very, very special speaker today, and his name is Foster Gamble. Many of you will recognize that name. For those of you that don't, Foster is the author and producer of Thrive, the movie, and Thrive 2, or I guess we call it Thrive On, which is the second Thrive movie. And those movies have been seen all over the world. How many countries or how many languages did Thrive end up getting translated? Like 20 different languages? And
it's over 91 million documented views now in 27 languages.
That is amazing. So it's just amazing what an impact this movie had, and that both movies have had. And when I think of Foster, I think of truth. It seems like at some point in his life, I think it was when it was at college or just after college, when you decided you were going to go for truth and seek truth, wherever it took you, you know, and you haven't been afraid about being caught, because when you take that path, you're going to all the conspiracy theorists. There's just no way, among many other things.
Right.
And, you know, you probably had the same problems I've had with my family. And I know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has had with his family.
Oh, yeah.
In the same arguments. And, you know, that's just the way it is. When you put yourself on that path, you just can't go back once you put yourself on that. So, yeah,
it's what they call in Tibetan Buddhism, taking the tiger by the tail. It's dangerous to hang on, but it's even more dangerous to let go.
Exactly. And once you're on this path, you have to keep going. And that's the way it's been for us. And, you know, I don't know if you were there or not, but I went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th.
No, I was not there, no.
Yeah. And oh my God, my daughter hasn't talked to me yet. We've had a couple emails.
Yeah.
You know, but she lives in California, Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
You know, and she's been, you know, she's taken the path of the strong left-wing path. And, you know, she just was appalled and embarrassed that her father had gone to DC to support, you know, the patriots and the movement towards, you know, more freedom and individual sovereignty, which is.
Well, there will be more and more truth coming out about that day, as you know.
Oh, I was there. I know what happened, you know.
Yeah.
And I was in a group of about 120 people, some of whom had gone inside. And the next day we downloaded the whole thing. We had a conference call among all of us. I know exactly what happened. It was a total false flag.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I wrote. And my letter went viral. Oh, that was the other thing that really upset all my children is my letter about how it was a false flag, wag the dog situation. Went viral. Somebody put it on Facebook, and it just went and went and went. So they were all embarrassed.
Well, I admire your courage. You know, you've stuck to whatever you found to be true as well. And you know, it's so interesting because everybody who's standing up for the truth or really looking for the truth even is having challenges in their relationships, at their workplace, in their worldview, all of that kind of stuff. But more and more, I'm seeing that people who take the leap and just are willing to risk social or financial or psychological discomfort to go for truth, they're finding a whole new global cadre of friends. And the friendship is based on fundamental principles, you know, fundamental philosophies of truth and the life force and our fundamental connection, as opposed to what's your political party, you know, where do you live, what's your religion, what's your gender, and so forth. And I think that's a critical step for humanity. It's just not a comfortable one.
It's not a comfortable one, but I'll tell you, the people, exactly what you just said, the people that I've been working with for the last year, that were total strangers to me as of March of last year, so almost a year, we're total strangers, are the closest. I mean, they're like brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You know, and we communicate almost every day, and we support each other, and you know, that's kind of like another family now. You know,
that's so great to hear. And I can tell you, because I'm getting communications on a daily basis from 122 countries around the world where, you know, we're in a beta test for launching our new solutions hub. And and we're planning on launching it in May. And what's happening, our old solutions hub already had over 1,100 groups in 90 plus countries. And they were taking on all sorts of different issues. And it was mostly around individual issues that people were organizing, and a lot of them being super effective using our sector solutions model. But what's happening now, but particularly because of how people have woken up over the last 10 years and the crisis that is going on so many levels, that is absolutely global for the first time, you know, around the so-called pandemic. But what's happening is that what is emerging in local communities is spontaneous freedom groups. They're coming together around their sovereignty, around whether or not they have to wear a mask or take a vaccine or shut down their business and all this kind of stuff. But what's really happening is they're finding that the common denominator is a love of freedom. Mm-hmm. And then that's the principle by which you can go about solving hundreds of issues. So there's a tremendous simplification going on, and there is a global grassroots family building itself that will be unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be unstoppable for two reasons. One, it's in tune with natural law.
Yes, exactly.
Two, it's going to be a vast majority of the people.
That's right.
You know, and they're seeing it right now. The things that are going on in Washington, D.C., you know, and at the border and all these things, it's just creating more people who are getting fed up and realizing that, you know, the people that we have considered to be leaders have failed us. They're corrupt. They're in many cases very sick, you know, depraved individuals.
Yes.
You know, with power, as the old saying is, power corrupts, and power corrupts absolutely. And you see that this, you know, the corruption is so deep. And so I think people have had it, and you're right, it's just turning people around. And I mentioned to you before we turned on the recording, Archbishop Vigano's letter, you know, because the people that, you know, I've really tried really hard to see where I was coming from, I've shown that letter to, you know, because of who it came from. This is the man who is largely responsible for bringing out and exposing the pedophilia in the Vatican.
Yes.
He is a brave man, a very highly respected man throughout the world. And here he was talking about, you know, the Great Awakening and the Great Reset, and how evil these people are, and the corrupt cabal of people that are trying to push this world plan, Agenda 21, Agenda 30, the Great Reset, all the same, all tied in together on everybody on the planet, and make us slaves.
Yeah.
You know? So it's an amazing time that we're living in.
Yeah, what a time to be alive.
It is.
There's never been a riskier time, you know, with global bioweapons and nuclear weapons and chemtrails on a global level, all this stuff, and the really imminent risk of global governance, of global tyranny, really. So there's all of that, but that's pushing humanity to get off the couch, you know, to find out what the heck is really going on and what we can do about it. And therefore we have to find the principles by which we can actually solve these things. And that's one thing I loved about reading your book on Common Sense Revisited is that you get right to the fundamental principles that can actually solve this thing. Not just, well, if our party gets in power, I'm sure we'll be better than the old regime or something. No, you're cutting right through it. And that's the only way we're going to come out of this thriving.
Well, and what Payne was talking about in Common Sense originally, which is what inspired me to write Common Sense Revisited, is indigenous power, what we call indigenous power. We're not talking about Native Americans. We're talking about the power that our founders knew we had when they said, we have the right to create our government, you know, like the Declaration of Independence. We have the right it's up to us to create our own government. We're the creator of the government. We're the establishers of that government. And because of that, we naturally have the right to alter or abolish it if we don't like it and start over again.
Yeah.
And that's what indigenous power is. And there's only one entity on the planet that has indigenous power, and that's in individual human beings. It's our indigenous power. The governments that we create, the corporations that we create, they're surrogates. They don't have indigenous power. And so when we as indigenous, having that indigenous power, individual human beings, create a corporation or a limited partnership. I was a general partner of 23 limited partnerships. We had a limited partnership agreement. It said what the general partners could do, what the limited partners could do. They laid out the guidelines. A corporation has a charter. It lays out what the corporate leaders are supposed to do. And a government has a charter. It has a constitution which lays out and defines what their limits are.
Yeah.
But it's up to the people to enforce those documents and enforce those limitations, because of human nature, people want to expand their territory of influence. The surrogates are always going, if they're left to their own devices, they're going to start taking on power. They're going to think that they have indigenous power, and they don't. And that's where the problems always occur.
Yeah, this has been one of the most synchronistic days that I have experienced in months. And I just got off a call. I was talking with Greg Braden, and he was saying, he said, people just don't realize that the end of America is a really big deal. There is no other entity on the planet, nor has there ever been, that was founded on the basis of our intrinsic rights, or as you're calling them, indigenous. And then the choice back then was to give limited powers to elected leaders. But that notion, people don't realize, particularly, young college graduates coming out as indoctrinated socialists, they have no idea how big and how fragile this thing is. Clyde, are you familiar with the writings of a woman named Rose Wilder Lane?
I've heard the name. I have not read her writing.
She was one of the original kind of libertarian female thinkers, along with Isabel Patterson and Ayn Rand. And she wrote a book called Discovering Liberty. Discovering Freedom. And she laid out a really beautiful kind of Cliff's Notes of the history of freedom thinking, where she said there have been 3 great attempts to achieve liberty for humanity. The first one was the Abrahamic Jesus Christianity attempt at a universal morality that wasn't based on nationality, or ethnicity. And then that got co-opted to a great extent. And then there was the Muslim one, with the Saracens in the Middle East, around Muhammad, where there was this flood of people going to Mecca to hear this guy who was talking about intrinsic individual freedom. And then obviously that got hugely co-opted. And then they ended up killing millions of people fighting with each other over the political power. But then the third great attempt was Thomas Paine writing Common Sense in America and establishing this standard of individual freedom for the world. And once again, the entire world has tried to flock here to find out about that beacon and to live in the condition of total freedom. And now 200 years later, that's obviously been hugely co-opted. We're on the brink of losing it altogether. So just to conclude this point and tie it into what we were talking about a moment ago, I believe that the most powerful thing that we can do right now is to create a global grassroots independent network of networks based on the principle of non-aggression. Yeah. And then connect in a decentralized way so that nobody is at risk for being taken out because, they're the head of the octopus or something like that. No, it's all independent kind of free energy circuits, but we're connected with each other based on truth and freedom rather than on money and political power. And that's what we're trying to do with the Thrive movement, is just help to bring in that notion. and then provide the information, the background, and then the infrastructure to help people organize that network of networks.
I think that's beautiful. I love it. That's what we need to do. We all need to support one another, whatever group
Yeah.
we've created, and not fight each other. We cannot be fighting each other. We have to be supporting one another. Let me ask you about this. We've been hearing now for the last few months about the corporate U.S., the 1871 corporation, and that is no longer, functioning, and that was created without our ability. It's controlled by the Vatican and by the London crew with the Bar Association and all that.
Right.
And what do you think about that? Do you think that is true? Do you think that is something that we need to be learning about and detaching ourselves from? What do you think?
Well, I do believe that it's true. I did about a year of research, quite intensely, of academic research, and talked to a lot of the best experts on that around the world. And I became convinced, and I wrote a summary blog on that people can access at our website at thriveon.com. The title of it is Knowledge is Power. I think it's 2.0. And it describes the whole history that you're talking about. And I won't go into that now because that's not the best use of our time. But yeah, I became convinced that the constitutional government was bankrupted by the European bankers, particularly around the world wars. And then they used that excuse to, behind closed doors, take over the American economy. And the politicians literally sold us out to the bankers. And we became collateral, and our children, our grandchildren all became collateral. Our future taxes became collateral to pay back this entity, debts that can never be paid back. And it was the means of the European bankers to regain control after the Revolutionary War, to regain control of the people and the economic power of America. So yeah, I think we've been living under a corporate rule for a long time, and that the constitutional government has been a sham. And I know people who are experts in this who have taken this to court and literally had the judges taking off their robes, getting down from the bench and running out of the court saying, I recuse myself. And one of them at a hearing up in Sacramento here, some of the bankers had come to, and they were sitting in the audience. And the judge was saying on his way out, he said, you're not leaving me hanging in the wind. I'm not going to be alone on this one. We're in this together. And that I've seen, corporate executives of big utility companies and banks and so forth. I've seen them resigning, as well as the judges, when delivered claims of liability and then notices of liability, which literally take the damages from these actions, whether it's vaccines or smart meters or chemtrails or banking schemes or wars, whatever it is. When you assign the liability to them and they know the scheme that they're involved in, they will run as fast as they can, because they know that they'll be in jail the rest of their lives and they'll owe you more money than they'll ever be able to work off. So I think it's a very real thing. And I think it's like going from this threat of global government back to nation states, but getting rid of nation states, going back to states, and then getting rid of them, going back to counties and cities. And then ultimately people will go, why do we have any of this state authority anyway? This is the transition that I think we're going to be in. But ultimately people need to understand that the entire thing is a scheme. We just need to wean ourselves from the whole notion that we should be ruled by an authority who has rights that we don't have.
Exactly. Well answered. And I'm glad to see that you have taken that, done that research and taken that point of view, because I agree with you 100%. In fact, we're going to have a lot of speakers in this event who are experts in that area.
Excellent.
Because to me, I think it's an easy way for us, once we know who we are and we understand the process for extraditing ourselves from being citizens of that corporation into being state nationals, which is with the republic in the land jurisdiction. where common law rules, we don't have to worry about seceding. We don't have to worry about any of that. We can just
Right.
have everyone figure this out and then extradite themselves, and the corporation fails because there's nobody paying taxes to it anymore.
That's
It
right.
literally crumbles, and it goes back to the old Bucky Fuller quote about creating the new model.
Right.
Create a new model, and people go, oh yeah, that old model doesn't work very well. This new model is starting to look pretty good. Oh yeah, like hundreds of thousands of people, now millions of people are going there. That may be the place to go. It's called freedom. It's
Yeah.
called the original republic. It's called the land jurisdiction where we have common law. And I think it's like you said, a nonviolent way for us to have more than a secession, an extradition of everybody leaving that corporate world. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, but that would be a big step.
Yeah, I was asked on a show a couple of days ago because I had laid out how a stateless, truly free society could work. Went through a lot of the details of that, and of course, the big question is, well, how in the world do we get from here to there?
Mhm.
And my essential answer is that what you were just saying, that we build the alternatives, we build the real currencies and the alternative truth media and the natural organic farming. Just in every sector, we go ahead and build the alternatives. And of course, the powers that want to control the rest of us are going to come after us, just like they're doing now with the censorship and the lockdowns and the business closures. They're going to come after us, but we outnumber them over 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah.
If people are awake. So it's going to be a matter. I mean, I've devoted my life to nonviolence, in many different activist areas and in the training and teaching of Aikido for 15 years. However, I'm not naive. In Aikido, you learn how to resolve conflict nonviolently, to neutralize aggression without having to hurt people if you can. But if you can't, you learn how to take care of business very quickly to protect yourself and your loved ones. So I think this is what I said in my answer to that question was, we need to create the alternatives and then be organized and interconnected in order to defend those alternatives for whoever comes to try to take our liberties away. And if anybody, and this is not a left-right thing, but right now it's getting played out in that arena around the whole Trump and election and the so-called insurrection and so forth. If people think that was the right-wing insurrection, they've got a big surprise coming if they ever actually trigger a right-wing insurrection, because those folks are committed to liberty. They're well armed. A lot of them are well trained, and they're a no-nonsense group that once the action starts, you will not want to be on the other side of that. So I'm committed to having the transition be, that we win an info war where everybody wins by the truth emerging, and we don't have to fight the physical wars. But if we need to, there are plenty of freedom lovers out there who are capable of not initiating force, but of responding defensively to force when it's initiated against us.
Yes, and well over 100 million. And
yeah, oh yeah.
And that number is growing so fast. The sale of guns and ammunition is just through the roof right now.
Right.
And I think will continue to be. And I agree with you 1000%. I don't want to see violence. I don't think we're going to need it. I think if we can do these things the right way and we can show people the models are there. You and I have talked about the octalog system and, and everything that the work of John David Garcia and Bob Podolsky. And then also D. Hawk. D. Hawk showed the world how he could, create the first $1 trillion revenue company, which was Visa, in about 7 years from scratch. And it was what he called a non-coercive enabling organization. Yeah. Nobody knew where the center of Visa was because he pushed all the authority making to the furthest away from the center. That's where people made the decisions on the local level, and There's all these techniques and ways of dealing with each other without, without disunion, without violence, in a non-coercive manner. I like the idea of unanimous decision making. I think they did that in at Gore. They did small groups, the whole company. Gore to this day, 10,000 people. No one tells anyone else what to do.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
remember you talking, you giving a talk on this at Acapulco when we were there together. And I'm glad you're reminding me of Dee Hock's work, because I think it would be a tremendous resource for our Solutions Hub. So what is the book or video that would be best for people to get introduced to that?
So what you have to do is get a hold of a copy of Birth of the Chaotic Age.
Right.
Chaotic is Chaordic. That's a chaord. And he came up with that name, which is a combination of chaos or freedom and order, chaordic. And to him, in his principles, and he lays out his 10 principles, the idea is you want as much freedom or chaos as you possibly can have, but still have enough order, just enough order to keep it, hold it together.
Yeah.
And that's what he did with Visa, and it was amazing, because what did it do? It empowered those hundreds of thousands of people. It empowered them,
Well, this is interesting that you say that, because the other female liberty writer that I referred to, Isabel Patterson, a lot of her book is combining freedom thinking with scientific principles. And she wrote this back in 1943. She and Rose Wilder Lane were warning about this guy Hitler. This is that people may be very happy thinking he's going to solve the problems, but this is not looking good, the way the authoritarian way he's doing it. But anyway, Isabel Patterson's major point was that the way that the cosmos works is it's all energy. And there's this tremendous energy transfer between the sun, space, and the earth itself. And we are a conduit. But Rudolf Steiner said the same thing. We're a conduit between the sun and the earth. And as such, we are literally free energy devices, as long as we're free. She said that if people are free to do as they wish, as long as they don't violate anyone else, what happens is the energy is released. That's in the form of creativity, as well as love and productivity and all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, creativity.
That's America. That's the energy that is America.
Exactly. And she said, but on the other hand, if you try to shut that down, you literally short circuit the universal system. And ultimately, I mean, it's going to kill people. It's going to make people sick. Ultimately, people are going to revolt in order to free up their energy again. So it was fascinating for me to read about that.
That's amazing.
Because it's exactly the same principles as I spent the last 5 years visiting energy inventors. And the ones who've got it successfully, they're all honoring this principle. There's no combustion. There's no explosion, fusion, fission, none of that. It's all gone. It's all resonance. It's dancing with the natural patterns of the universe. And it turns out that when you're humble enough to do that, and you know enough about the dynamics of the unified field to do that, lo and behold, the universe gives you everything you need, even in terms of electricity.
That's amazing. And it's just really, and you think about the movie The Matrix, how they had everybody plugged in to the,
exactly,
and they were living off of our the energy of the people. It was so well done. I mean, they knew exactly what they were doing when they created the movie. I think it was one of those things where they have to tell you what they're doing to you, that their moral, code, that they're, as long as they tell you what they're doing to you, they can do whatever they want to you. And
I'm not sure in that case. It might have been, but the Wachowski brothers seem to be quite awake to this stuff. I believe that they made V for Vendetta also. I think they've been trying to wake people up to what's really going on. And now, everybody wears their Fox mask and so forth in the freedom marches. So I think they've been a force for freedom for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that movie was absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit about energy devices.
Yeah.
Okay. And, I was very intrigued by the Africa group that you had, and it was just like the size of about of a trailer or a small like mobile home or something that was that was running what several couple hundred homes.
Yeah, it wasn't running homes at the time. It was running it's run a warehouse, and at that time it was running a church. But that that thing puts out 0.5 megawatt of energy. That's 500 kilowatts of energy. And as Maxwell, the inventor, says in the movie, that in Africa, that's enough to run 300 homes. And it has no moving parts. It makes no sound. It has no pollution, and it's not plugged into anything. So standing next to that device is a truly spiritual opportunity. I mean, I'm just standing there going, wow, life on planet Earth just changed.
Yeah. Yeah. There goes all the problems with fossil fuel and everything, all of that, climate change. So where is that? Where do you stand with that?
Well, the inventor is in Zimbabwe, Harare, and I have not been able to get engineers or investors into Zimbabwe since the shutdown. I mean, literally, we had people lined up, ready to go, but it is coming out anyway. He's had to close off the waiting list of people who've signed up and put down their deposits for devices. He's sold licenses to numerous countries, and they're already opening manufacturing plants in 4 different countries. And with Maxwell, as with all of the successful inventors that I work with, I tell them I will not work with you until your intellectual property is secure outside your brain. And because they're just not safe until that happens. So we're making it very publicly known that IP is secured in multiple countries and divided up into different segments in secure locations. So it won't do any good to try to threaten Maxwell or me or any of his other cohorts. So I do believe that Max is one of the first devices that actually is coming out now. And there are several others that are working devices, and the business dealings are being worked out now, along with the security to keep these inventors safe while it gets to the point where the toothpaste is out of the tube and can't be put back.
Okay, so let me ask a couple questions. First of all, will this eliminate the need for a grid? In other words, could we have these in neighborhoods and they run everybody's houses? I mean,
ultimately, a grid will just be a choice.
Right.
If you have a community, let's say you've got a community of 100 people, and you want to have one 50 kilowatt device, and you want to have it run all the homes, well, you do a grid for that thing.
Small, but I mean the giant grid that we have now, where you have to depend on all these utilities.
Oh, absolutely. The interim step will be the heart transverter technology that we featured in Thrive 2, which allows people to access the already existing grids, but to decentralize them so that you can you're not affected by blackouts and brownouts. You can share energy with your neighbor if theirs goes out or whatever. And that's the first technology to be able to do that. And thanks to Thrive 2, the world has found out about that now. And there are people who are becoming customers of his and beginning to spread that technology to improve the grid, the functioning of the grid, and to decentralize control over it.
Decentralizing it. Okay. So
yeah, so decentralize it. And then ultimately, years from now, then it will not be needed itself. But, one of the other technologies that we featured in Thrive 2 was the Zenic power technology, which was what Tesla was working on, and JP Morgan shut him down. They're already transmitting both power and data wirelessly. So that gets rid of the entire grid, even local grids. You'll have an antenna. Remember the way you used to have a TV antenna on your house? You will simply have an antenna in your car, on your home or whatever, on your boat, and you'll simply be bringing down the signal that will have either power or data or both.
Amazing. And so that seems like that's really a big priority for you, right?
Yeah, and that one can obsolete the claims that 5G is necessary, because 5G is a false flag also. In the name of faster download speeds for your movies, which would be nice, but nobody's really noticing it these days. Under the guise of that, they're irradiating 7 billion people on the planet and then planting these chips in you by which they can control your mind, your emotions, your physical health, and so forth. And so we absolutely don't need that. And so, as Bucky said, if you want to improve a technology or something, you don't have to go up against the last one. You just create a new one that obsoletes the old one. So that's what the Zenic people are doing.
Let me ask you, in combination with 5G, don't the chemtrails play a role as well?
Absolutely. There are nanoparticles in the chemtrails, which are there. They weren't successful. The powers that want to be were not successful in getting enough RFID chips into us. Fortunately, people woke up and said no. But the former top level person at the CIA has admitted their goal for 50 years has been to get us all chipped and tracked. So now they're trying to do it in the vaccines, and they're trying to do it in the nanoparticles in COVID tests. They're trying to do it in particles that are coming down from all the chemtrailing to get these synthetic things into you, which then activate. They'll actually, some of them, there's already video proof, these things will grow and they'll combine with each other and create antennas inside yourself that then can be affected by the frequencies of 5G.
Very interesting. I interviewed a lady the other day that has invented this bucket where you soak your feet in it and you put certain things in there, and it's got an electrical cord around it. There's an electrical charge going through it, and you bring these things out of you. And I actually saw the little black specks of nanoparticles in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very serious stuff. And for people even who have woken up to that the pandemic is an excuse to bring in the vaccine rather than the other way around, most people still don't realize the implications of that. The global domination agenda isn't just trying to get political power over us. They want to literally control and own our bodies and our behavior through AI implants, through these nanobots, through the tracking and tracing, and then locking people down and controlling their travel or their behavior with these electronic fences that they can put around entire communities from the satellites and so forth. The ultimate goal, as far as I can tell, and this is in the words of their own scientists. We've spent the last month in my Freedom Portal show on this very topic, and Greg Braden's coming on it on Saturday to do like the last piece of that puzzle. But we're really trying to wake people up to that the goal of the global domination agenda is not just to control humanity, it's to take over humanity and give us over to artificial intelligence. It's not just trying to upload our consciousness into a computer, which I think they've discovered they can't do. So therefore, they want to keep enough biology that they can instead put the artificial implants in all different sorts of ways into us, so that we provide the biology and I think the spirit to have enough consciousness for it to survive. But they provide the control mechanisms and the data gathering mechanisms, and then they own the patents on all those. So when you need an update on your program, just like if you have a Microsoft system and it crashes and you need a new system, well, this is the same philosophy that Gates is using to try to take over our bodies, our minds, and our souls.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really, really is. And so all this part of it, the chemtrails put in the metals and everything that basically make us like an antenna, right? And then they can control us. They can, through the chips and the microdata, basically be able to take us over.
Right, and it also puts a lot of metals, aluminum, and others in the atmosphere that makes their radar and their HARP and so forth work better to not only track and control us, but also to affect the weather and earthquakes and that kind of thing.
It's sort of taking the propaganda machine they have now with the news media,
Right.
And they are literally controlling us with
Yeah.
brainwashing, and they've been doing it, since the 1950s at least, with the CIA controlling all of the media, and everything that they put out is mind control, in the movies and the books and everything, and the school teachers, and but this is another level. This is actually more physically taking it over through new technology and the 5G and everything else, and and then the AI.
And when you put all these pieces of the puzzle together, as I know you've been doing, as we've been doing, it's chilling. It's very risky, very scary stuff. And so I understand why a lot of people, like, don't even tell me about it, or
Right.
they'll just get upset rather than actually wanting to hear if there's any coherence to the information. I hear and honor that. You need to be ready to integrate this information. The good news is that we have the truth, we have the life force, and we have love on our side. And the truth keeps emerging, just like you're not going to kill the life force. We might set it back a few 100,000 years, the evolution on planet Earth, if they succeed in blowing everything up or something like that. But I don't think that's going to happen, because I think that the internet will stay free enough. There's so many brilliant hackers all over the planet who've already demonstrated their ability to bring down Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, and the NSA in a day if they have to show what they can do. That's not what they're up to, but they can defend themselves. They can defend the rest of us. And so with the internet, the truth is coming out so fast now that they're having to do these desperate lunges to finally gain the legislation, the taxation, and the police force to impose their one world government. That's the Great Reset. That's the New World Order. Because if they can get that total tyranny, then they think, like Stalin and Mao and Hitler and Mussolini and the rest of them, they're under the illusion that they'll be able to control everybody on the planet that they don't kill off in the process. But I'm actually really encouraged by everything that I've seen. That's why we made Thrive 2. All of the solutions, from the health solutions to the energy solutions, agriculture, and including philosophy and personal relationships, like the work that you do, we actually know how to self-organize in a sustainable, thriving manner. So we actually have all the solutions. That's what Thrive 2 attempts to lay out. So I'm actually really encouraged that, I guess it had to get worse. It had to get, now we're very close to a complete communist takeover of the so-called US government. But it's getting so obvious just in the first couple of months what's going on in terms of collapsing the economy, collapsing the borders, subjugating us to China, just on and on, this craziness that even people on the left are waking up to know, wait a minute, what is actually going on here? So I think that the conversation about, let's have our beacon be true freedom, and then let's collaborate with each other around scientific and moral principles to get from here to there. So I'm actually really encouraged about our chances, as desperate as it looks from the mainstream media right now.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think that we are pretty much in tune on that. We're going to win. And like you said right at the beginning, there's a million of us to one of them.
Yeah.
And, we just need to wake up our fellow citizens, our fellow human beings, and teach them who they really are.
Yes.
And show them all this. It's all there. You've done it, the work in Thrive and Thrive 2. Your letter on the pandemic was great, because you went into who's behind it all, and the same old people, for thousands of years, really,
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. For anybody who hasn't come across that yet, as Kimberly could tell you, once I get a hold of something like COVID, I'm like a dog with a bone. I won't let go until I understand it and have gotten the word out. So I researched that thing probably 4 or 5 hours a day while doing everything else for 11 months, and finally spent 3 weeks collating all that information because it finally was coherent to me. I felt like I had sufficient facts and evidence to represent what was really going on, why it was going on, and how we can get out of it. So I put that into a paper. It's a lengthy read, but you can do it in half an hour. And I called it Covert 19, where the real sickness lies and how we can heal it. So that's available on our website at thriveon.com. So please take a look at that. Particularly if you're onto some of this, but you're having difficulty describing it to your friends and neighbors, it puts all the pieces together in a way that you can just hand someone if you think that they can handle it, and they can always stop halfway through and throw it away or come back later or whatever. So I intended it for a tool to save people time. So please access that if you're interested.
So I just want to reiterate this to everybody listening to this interview: thriveon.com, and it's called Covert 19. Get that, download it, and send it to everybody you know.
Yeah.
Put it out and hand it to people who don't, read emails. Because I think it's comprehensive, it's totally documented, all the sources are there, and it lays it all out. How the numbers were faked, how the numbers started out were fake numbers at the beginning, how they created the whole thing with fear. One day Fauci was saying masks, the next day he wasn't. I mean, the whole thing, it's just a big scam. It's really, really is the scamdemic.
Yes, exactly.
People got sick, but that was the flu they were getting. It's just a flu,
Well,
And
there are also some bioweapons that they have developed along the line of the flu that can create serious flu-like symptoms, which I think that they did create. And I've tracked the whole history of how they made these in the labs and moved them around and released them in different cities. But it's not a virus. There is no COVID virus. It's a contagion that's based on your immune system trying to get rid of toxins, creates these exogens, which in mass can make somebody sick. So if they get exposed to an amount of that, that will put their own immune system, will put their own balance beyond what their immune system can handle, then they can get sick for a while. But even then, unless you're 90 with 3 pre-existing conditions, there's a 99.7% chance you're going to survive this thing anyway. So to be locked down, lose your business, lose your freedom, lose the economy, lose your country over that's not common sense, to come back to the theme of your summit here.
It's not common sense at all. It's insanity. It really is. So, okay. So if people want to see the original Thrive, they can just go online and Google that, right? Thrive.
Well, just everything's available at thriveon.com. So you can see Thrive 1 for free. You can see Thrive 2. You can rent or purchase that. And then you can also find out about the Freedom Portal. For people who are interested, then you can subscribe, and I do a weekly show and I send out videos and so forth for people who actually want to be in the conversation. You want to learn from my deep dives more deeply, and you want to share with me. I'm learning from people as they're learning from me. It's a very educated, open-minded, and bright network of people who've joined that. And then, starting in May, we'll be launching this Freedom Portal and that's going to be for free, interlinking freedom groups all over the world in 40 different languages and giving you everything you need. It's basically like a Facebook for freedom lovers, and you can do encrypted video conferencing. You can share best practices and resources. You can start a group. You can find a group. And so we're trying to provide the infrastructure to help people to do what they would naturally do if they're free to do it.
Oh, that's incredible. I'll definitely sign up.
Great.
Okay, I'll definitely get on that. That is tremendous. So listen, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's an honor and a privilege to get to be in conversation with your network. And it's always fun and inspiring to see you again, Clyde.
Yeah, it is. It really is fun to see you. And, you know, the group we had in Acapulco with you and me and Ed Griffin and Bob Podolsky, that was.
And Jeff Berwick was in on that too.
Yes, absolutely. It
Yeah.
was tremendous. It was a great group and a wonderful time. So we got to.
Now we're all blacklisted, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Everybody.
it must have been on to something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a badge of honor.
Yeah. Right. Now it's gotten so bad. If you're not blacklisted, like, what the hell? What are you doing?
Who are you? You know, it's really an interesting time. Like you said, back to the beginning, it's like a very, very interesting time to be alive, very exciting time to be alive and be part of this transition, because we are going to transition to a country, to a world, to a civilization that is, people can't even imagine how good it's going to be.
Exactly. It's going to be bliss and harmony and creativity truly beyond our current imaginings. I encourage people to, like, once a day, just close your eyes for even a minute and just imagine what it would be like to be in a society where essentially everybody's healthy, everybody's thriving, everybody's doing what they actually want to do. I think that we will be there relatively soon. And I think that's when we'll be welcomed into the cosmic community.
Absolutely. I do want to mention one more time, you brought up DHOC, The Birth of the Chaotic Age. I highly recommend people read. I just had my 17-year-old grandson read that book. He was so impressed. He tried to get a hold of DHOC. And
wow.
he got an email back from him. And yeah, this kid is head of the UN at the Laguna Beach High School, the president of the debate society. He's the student council representative, a student representative to the school board. You know, so I'm trying to get him going in the right direction. But
he sounds like one to watch, and you know, by the time he's really got all his skills together, he can transform the UN too.
Well, that's the idea. That's why, you know, I'm working on it. But, yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. And let's talk soon. Okay.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot, Clyde.
For joining us today, everybody.
My pleasure.